So yeah, thanks for everybody for being here on a Sunday morning, and just want to give us a second to get here and take a few deep breaths and put aside whatever you were thinking about before and be here with each other. And take a second just to check in with your body and your thoughts, and you just observe where your feelings are at this moment, either around thinking about raising the money, or being here on a Sunday, or and I think we only have our 5 of us here right now, so we can see who else is in the room with us. Um we Katie, we can go to the next slide. So we are want to begin with what we talked about last time, and making sure that we're always keeping in mind that when we're talking about wealth, we have always got to begin with understanding that the land that we are on was held and is held in stewardship by the indigenous people of this land. And the entire wealth system that we have has been built upon cordoning off that land, privatizing that land, stealing that land, and making every attempt possible to get rid of, murder, erase the people who have long been the stewards of this land. So it's absolutely essential that we keep that always at the beginning of our minds, both in honor and in grieving and in grounding of that. And for myself, as someone with access to privilege, and to wealth and resources, it helps me remember that it isn't mine. That none of this, as we're asking people to give money, as we are giving money, as we're asking for resources, really staying grounded and aware in the fact that none of this is ours. And even the belonging of the land to the indigenous people of Turtle Island, that belonging is not even in the same way that we talk about it in that white supremacist capitalist ownership model, right? So I want to just ground us in that and keep remembering that, as well as we think about especially the unique context of inside the United States here, the Atlantic slave trade and its brutal, unprecedented cruelty and breaking apart of families, and building of all this wealth on those stolen futures as well. So absolutely important for us to think about in that context, and then also in the global context, that story played out in lots of different ways all over the world. And so just want to really ground us in thinking about that as we start working through how do we make things back to a space where we well, I don't know, as we move toward the future we want. I won't try to name all that right now. So I'd like to move to the next slide and just have some time for us to talk. So what's still sticking with you from last session? Because everybody here was at our last one. Or just what have you been reflecting on as far as your proximity to resources and redistributing them? So just want to have some time to talk to each other and really process those feelings and thoughts. So thank y'all so much for, digging into your feelings about this and really, sharing about what's been going on in your head. And just to give you a little bit of context too about where this is going, I just want to make sure that we're kind of clear. When we came into this, it was like, okay, we need to start moving money now. All we got needs the money. People are in dire crisis. They have been, of course, for years, but obviously there was just this, we need to start moving that money for all we got. And as we've had now our second session here, just really coming to an understanding that a lot of this unpacking and with the aid of many other folks that I've worked with, including Penny, and just really thinking about how are we doing this for the long term? Because this isn't going to be a thing. We are making a commitment to shifting our lives into a way where we are moving resources all the time, that we are making a commitment to mutual aid, right? And so it's important that we do have people and places where we can talk through that stuff, right? Affinity group work and like working with other folks who have these common experiences with you to unpack that is so, so key in being able to be resilient and being able to go the long haul and being able to not fall back into the same patterns of hoarding or of abuse of yourself or others, or the things that we do, you know, when we run up against those moments, right? And so we're envisioning that this will be a part, like a 3 or 4 part, depending on how it goes, series that's going to be really geared towards moving money in the short term, in the next couple of months, to really move big money in your networks through having personal asks with those folks to either We All We Got or some other either person or organization that is Black, Indigenous, or people of color led by folks who are, you know, the experts and the folks that are, you know, have the experiences and expertise about what it means to live at the front lines of that. So that's one part. But then we're hoping inside of SURJ, especially because of our positioning as an organization that, you know, moves white people for racial and economic justice, to be doing some long-term conversations with each other, having support groups, digging further into class analysis, understanding, you know, the overlaps of your whiteness, but also the varying experiences you've had as far as your class privilege, and being able to be in caucuses with your, or, you know, affinity group with folks from your own class background, understanding what resources you still have access to, all of those things that we're hoping to make be a long-term thing and really make this a place where we're doing that long-term. So just want to give you sort of that feel about why and what and how we're doing this. So, so with that being said, I'll, Katie, can you put up the next slide? Yeah, so that one. So fundraising is organizing, making asks of people to give resources, to move material possessions, cash, whatever it is that you're asking them to do, is organizing. You have, you know, our responsibility is to bring people into the movement, to see the worlds that we're trying to create, to see the ones that are already being created, that have been created for years and years and years, as models of mutual aid in communities of color, and really thinking about how are you, in the same way that, sorry, I'm kind of getting off track. Let me pause, take a breath. When you ask someone to invest materially in something, you're also inviting them into a new way of your relationship and their relationship to the world, right? And so when we think of organizing, and maybe in our spaces, we've thought of it as like getting people to go to protests, or you know, these kinds of movements that we think of. And the way that that works is because you have relationships with people, right? Organizing, though, I think we think a lot of it as like cold calling and text banking and those kinds of things to people we don't know. That's not really organizing. Is about the relationships you have with other people, and moving. Oh, I'm doing a terrible job of this. I don't really know why I'm struggling. Do y'all get this? Should I stop? Should I stop trying to explain it? Maybe it's just this. Fundraising is organizing, and organizing is relationships. Anyone want to add to that? Maybe I don't need to say more.
That is it. I think you got it.
Okay, good. I don't know why
I think it's kind of like, it's, you mostly said this already, but it's like networking for a purpose, like a passion. And like I was saying recently, that I used to always think I was bad at networking, but since I started doing it for things that I feel like passionate about, that have a cause behind it that I really deeply care about, it's been really easy for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think people think organizing with a capital O is like some like structural something, but the reality is we're organizing all the time. Like when you are like checking in with a friend to like make sure that their needs get met, or you're like trying to ask this person to help you get a relationship with this person so that you can ask them about, that's organizing. That's what that is. And we're all doing it all the time, and we all have those skills. And so I just kind of want to like demystify that and bring it back to the relationships that you have with people. Because if our goal is to move away from this idea of individualism that's been stamped in us from so long, put there by white supremacy, put there by capitalism, that says that we have to do things individually, then we're working towards a vision of a world where we are interdependent on one another. And therefore, that means that if we're trying to build that world, we have to lean into the relationships that we have, in order to, get us there. And yeah, Penny, you wanted to say something?
I do. I really love this conversation. So if it's okay, I would like to say also, the way that I interpret this and like to speak about it is like, and I said this last time about like language. Sometimes like the word like fundraising is like a triggering. I don't like to use that word too much, but like it's a word that causes like a little bit of anxiety with people. They're like fundraising, so like, and then like emphasizing this idea of relationships. The way that I like to speak about this is like, we're looking for offerings, and we're looking for people to seek to be like in community again, right? Like we're looking for reconciliation. Wealth redistribution is about reconciliation. And when we're talking about revolution and we're talking about transformative, anything, and being in right relation, it's important to understand that white people have a different revolution than folks who have experienced colonization. And the things that white people have to reconcile is their relationship in terms of humanity. And the things that people of color have to reconcile are things that were stolen from them. So being in right relationship is going to involve white people creating spaces for people of color to regain what has been stolen from them within themselves, which a lot of white people dislike that conversation, honestly, and a lot of white people remove themselves from being in participation with community when they feel that they are being excluded. But what white people need to understand is people of color need space to regain some things, and we need resources to do that as well. And that's super important to understand. Is the reason that we cannot regain things is because we're fighting every day for survival, and we don't have spaces together to reconcile those things together. And I think that that's something that's this disconnect. It's a difficult thing to explain, and it's not segregation, right? But it is separatism in a way that is important to regain some things away from the ongoing trauma of white supremacy. So if I could just say that, thank you.
Yeah, Penny, I very much appreciate that. And I think those are hard things to understand as white people. I think, so much of what you're saying makes sense. And at the same time has not been seen by me, and so I really appreciate you bringing that in, and us understanding that the tasks are different. The task of making ourselves and our community whole are very different. And I really do appreciate what you have said about, regaining our humanity, right? And really continuing, the reason that we spend, and maybe this is the next part I kind of want to get into is, you know, I'm sure that a lot of us like coming to this workshop are like, okay, I want to figure out how to like make the ask and get the money and move the money. And, you know, really getting right with the fact that, you know, we have to unpack our feelings and our thoughts around this, that we have to understand the way that we have been disconnected from our humanity, the ways that we have enacted violence, the ways that we have participated in that inaction, in that violence, and done hoarding of our own and all the things that we have done, and see how much that has disconnected us from our own humanity. And I love that. I really appreciate redistribution is about reconciliation. And so I think what I want to say along that is that the reasons we're asking us to continue to unpack that for ourselves is that this is an ongoing conversation you're going to be having with other people. And I know it's like inside of this space, we all opted to be here to have these conversations. And those relationships that you're going to have are about reconnecting people with their humanity and giving them an offering. Thank you, Penny, to engage in a new way to be able to do that. So that's why we're spending a lot of time on this and really thinking through that. So with that, we'll go to the sort of more like looking at who are those networks and some of those relationships. So pull back out that sheet of paper that you made back from part 1, if you have it somewhere, where, and if you didn't take the time to do that exercise or something gotten in the way of that, just a reminder of what that looks like. So basically you put yourself in the center, and then, or where you can put it in the right or the left or the corner, however you like, you don't have to be in the center. But then basically seeing what networks are you a part of, what, you know, trying to fire up, who can we be speaking to? And inside of that, Katie, no, you'll be right back. Okay. Yeah, your different networks. And then I had you at the last one, write down some names of people that you want to reach out to and ask, and what you're going to ask of them. Is it donating masks? Is it if they have a space that we got can be using for food distribution? Can they give you $1,000? Can they give you $100? Can they turn over the title of their land to, you know, the indigenous folks that used to live there? What is the ask that you are making, right? And so just take a second. I want to give us some time also, because I know we have busy lives and sometimes it can be hard to like sit down and get yourself to do this thing. So we just want to leave space for us to take some time to make some adjustments. So Katie, if you'll go to like the second point. Yep. And then the next one. Yeah. So just let's take a few minutes just to like, is there anybody you want to add to that list that came up for you that you haven't gotten to write down? Any adjustments you want to make to the ask? Do you want to ask for more? Is there something that you didn't think of that might be needed that you could ask them for? Editing, you know, there's lots of different ways to redistribute our skills, talents, resources, right? So just give you a couple of minutes to take some time to reflect on that and look at it. And then Katie, can you do the next couple bullet points? Just for some more reflection. So yeah, I want you to, and you can do the next one too, Katie. So looking at this more complete list, and you might still be working on it, but if you're there, one, how invested they are in you and your relationship. So you can find some sort of way of signifying that for yourself, you know, whether it's like a 1, 2, 3 or like a, you know, whatever it is that works for you. So really think about like, how close of a relationship do you have? How invested are they in you as a person and in your relationship? Because so much of this conversation that we will be having is all predicated on like the love and care y'all have for each other. And that, you know, it is a little going to be about convincing them to give money to this particular thing, but it's really about you and that they respect you, care for you, that y'all have a long-standing relationship together. So how invested are they in you and your relationship? And then the next one, I would encourage you to take some time with each name and really assess for yourself what comes up in your body when you look at that name and that ask, right? How do you feel about asking them to redistribute their wealth? And in turn, remembering that really what you're asking them to do is show up for you, right? So there is a personal connection here that's happening. In addition to obviously all the other sort of stuff that we've been talking about, but how does it make you feel to ask them to move their money and also to ask them to do it for you, to show up for you in that way? So let's take a few minutes to reflect on that. May not spend a lot of time on this because it seems like we've already kind of gotten into this in our last breakout session, but really just taking a second to think about like what feelings come up for you as you think about asking people you have relationships for money and other resources, and also just about talking to them about systems that gave them that money. How does that feel? Like, what are some of the things that come up? So if y'all want to spend some more time on that, we can. I feel like we kind of got into it, but I would love to open up a couple of minutes if anybody's feeling like wanting to share some of the feelings that are coming up for you in thinking about that. And if you unmute, if you'd like to just, let's do raised hands. And then if you do unmute, maybe let us know if you'd like us to pause the recording or if you're cool with it going forward. And maybe Katie, let's stop share for a minute so we can see each other. Yeah, so any thoughts about, making the asks, reaching out to people? Go for it, Catherine.
You want me to pause share, or do you want?
I'm okay if you want to keep it rolling. I think coming into today, like the end of last Sunday and coming into today, I was really struggling with like how do I ask for money, particularly of like family and people who have like supported me throughout my life. It feels like asking them for like more than they've already given me. But even just through the course of this conversation, as I think about particularly like the relationship with my parents and grandparents and close family members, if I can articulate and explain to them why this work is meaningful to me, I know that that will connect with them in a really powerful way. And I'm starting to realize that it's not me asking them for something. In a way, it's also me giving them something, giving them the opportunity to understand why this thing about the way I see the world is so important to me could be really important to them. And, I think also just, I think that they like care about the world and care about the impact that they have on the world. Like that's part of who they are. They're good people. And so this is giving them the opportunity to see another way, that, as Penny so well put it, they can begin to heal their relationship with humanity. And the more I think about it as an opportunity that I'm giving them, that experience is what I'm giving them. The ask for money is secondary to that. That's the opportunity for them to achieve like some of that healing. Yeah, I think reframing it as like that interaction, that relationship is the key thing. The monetary ask is the result of that. I feel just a lot more confident with kind of the naturalness and the opportunity of doing this, not as like asking them for something, but strengthening our relationship and letting them into my way of seeing the world a little bit more.
Thank you, Catherine. Ooh, I resonate with a lot of that. Katie Gunning?
Yeah, I really agree with a lot of what Catherine was saying. And that was definitely something that stuck with me from last time, was that kind of reframe of like, people want to give, it just has to be you asking as someone that they trust. And that was something that I hadn't really thought about in those terms, because last year I did like my first time where I was actually asking people for funds instead of like take part in this thing or, you know, be involved in this other way. But it was the first time I was saying, can you give a monetary donation? And I was really surprised by how excited and willing people were. I thought I like really like tiptoed around it and was like really worried people were going to be upset with me or like I was taking advantage of our relationship, but they were so excited to be a part of it. And so that's definitely something where I'm feeling more confident going into doing kind of another fundraiser, moving funds. I'm feeling a lot more confident in that people will want to take part of it and be excited to take part of it. So I'm definitely resonating with a lot of that.
Amen. And I do want to say, like, I think we tend to think of it as adversarial because money is like such a thing that divides us, right? All that gag order, you know, stuff that we've talked about in the past. But I mean, I think that that does deny the humanity and like the goodness and the desire of all the people that are in our lives to make the world better. And if anything, we're in a context right now where it is so clear, you know, even the most, you know, privileged folks, it is so clear that it's not right. That the money and the where it is held is not right. And so I think it's such an opportunity, Katie. And I think it's important, and I need to shift my language in talking about when I say the world we want, I mean like the people you're about to ask too. I don't mean it's like us and them. I mean like we all want a world where people can live and thrive and not have to feel like they have the boot on their neck of someone, nor be the person that has that boot, you know? I mean, we know that that's not okay. So yeah, we want to be able to believe in our ability, yeah, that we all we got, that we can take care of each other and we will, right? So Matt.
This got so interesting. I think I forgot the original question, which was what has reflecting on these groups and these questions told you about your plan and your thoughts. And really mine was, well, all I wanted to say was something you, Catherine and Katie both touched on, about the comfort with the ask in the relationship. It made me realize that half of these groups or networks are ones that I'd probably be comfortable asking for money, and some of them aren't. Like, you know, my previous job, like there's a my current job, there's a current relationship, and we all have like a vested interest in each other, and I feel comfortable talking to them about money. But like, as close as I am to people from my prior job, there's something about asking them for money that just seems really out of the blue and strange. Whereas giving them information about volunteer opportunities or in-kind donations and monetary donations like you make to all we got is a lot easier somehow. In some, I don't know, like diplomatic or sales technique version of knowing your audience, right? Like I'm just, the beautiful thing, you know, you said, Catherine, I didn't write it down, but like, that's just missing from half of these groups I wrote down. So I'm having to think about that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matt. And this actually came up on the meeting on Wednesday too, was, and this is maybe the next question we'll get into, but Penny, I just saw your hand, so I want you to get to go. But it may not be that in that list that the first conversation you're going to have is going to be like, hey, give me money, right? You're mapping out like who are the people in your life that you think like want to have these opportunities, and thinking about, okay, well, what's the next step in developing the kind of relationship with them or letting them into or bringing them into this vision, this opportunity, right? And so that we'll move into that in a second, to just say like, start thinking about what are the steps to with each of those folks. You know, do they need to know more about like how you're doing? Do you need to know about how they're doing? You haven't talked to them in months. Like what's going on with their lives? Are they folks that you want to strengthen relationships with anyway? And then moving into like telling them about your experience, right? So we'll talk about that in a sec. So Katie and then Penny. It looks like we decided in the chat, right?
I am gonna pause the recording for this
I really want to talk about is if it's okay, I'm not going to like say exactly what you spoke about, Katie, but I do want to address some of the things you said, if that's okay. But first, Matt, like, I love you bringing up, like, I don't know, like, if they would support monetarily, but like maybe in other ways folks would support, and like having conversations about that, because there are so many ways that folks can support and be in community and provide mutual aid that are not like giving money, right? Like, for instance, right now, all we got is looking for another place to expand into, right? And like, that's a difficult thing to find. Commercial buildings are expensive. Having a place for us to continue doing what we're doing, like, is pretty crucial. And we're trying to expand out of the place that we're in. If you know anybody who can offer spaces or anything like that, right? Like, we could definitely use that kind of stuff as well. I love the idea of getting people involved in doing direct action in order to then have these conversations in relation to that, right? Because usually people need to be like, we're visceral, right? Like, we need to be in things and see them with our own eyes. And when you are participating in direct action, like, that's a great way to get people involved is, hey, we've all been sitting inside. I don't want to go out to eat with you, but I would love it if we could participate in this grocery distribution, right? Here are their principles. Oh yeah, their principles are like this. They don't work with the police. Yeah, let's talk about that, right? Like, and like kind of having those conversations about things that are already happening, so you don't feel like this pressure to like invent a textbook way of saying things to folks. And you know what I'm saying? Like, don't put that much pressure on yourself. That's perfectionism culture. We're not doing that anymore, right? Like, finding ways to engage folks in a more visceral way is always just an easier way to talk to folks about things anyway, right? You're bringing yourself to a place of relation when you're doing that. And, you know, that's when I would say to you, you know, about what you spoke about, Katie, is like having these conversations in a way that relates to, you know, I'm sure your family, regardless of all of the wealth they've accumulated, like, it sounds like there are people who really do want to be in right relationship with community. And there must be an origin somewhere, right? Like that they remember a time, or they heard of a time from their elders when people were in community with each other, right? And like really having those conversations, because we all can relate to this, right? It's not like we can't relate to it. And just like really speaking to that, like, let's come back to that. Let's come back to understanding that we all can exist in different ways together, and we can hold multiple truths at the same time, and things can be painful and things can be happy, and we can celebrate and we can have conflict with resolution. Like, these things are possible, and let's bring out like some imagination and creativity, because really it is just a lack of imagination. It's not that things aren't possible, it's just a lack of imagination. And we all need to like get our little kid out or whatever, you know, because like you said too, this is really deep work. It is. And a lot of it has to do with, guess what, reparenting and undoing generational trauma, right? Because we all, everybody who has been involved in colonization and imperialism has trauma from this. It's just different, right? White people have trauma from this stuff too. White people do. And so like, when we have those conversations, that's when we can reconcile some deep rooted stuff too. I just wanted to say that. Thank you for these conversations again.
And Katie Gunning, and if you'll let us know if you want to pause or not pause.
Yeah, it's fine to leave it going. I was resonating with what Matt was saying about how like there are certain people where I feel comfortable asking for money and certain people where I don't feel as comfortable. And I know one thing that was really helpful for me kind of in the first time that I ran, it was kind of like a food drive and a fundraising opportunity. So it really helped me to frame it as almost like, hey, I'm cleaning out my cupboards. Like you guys maybe clean out your cupboards, see if you have anything to donate. So like thinking about spring cleaning and almost framing it as like just this opportunity to clean out your cupboards and feel fresh. And so that was something that even just in today, I was thinking like, I know 3 people who are moving right now. They probably would really like if someone came to their house and picked up all this stuff that they want to get rid of. So just having like different options for the ways that people can participate in what you're doing, it really made me feel more comfortable not just asking for money, but saying, hey, if you have some stuff to give, or if you feel more comfortable giving some money, it really helped out for me. So just something I was thinking of.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's wonderful. And the 2 things that are resonating for me is like, one, just thinking about that spring cleaning and like getting all those canned goods that have been sitting in your cupboard for forever. Like to me, that's such a great illustration of what we're talking about. I mean, when I've been sitting on canned goods that I have not been eating while there are people out there who need food, not only am I able to like now make that possible for those folks to eat, but it's like I don't have like this weight and reminder of like the hoarding that I have that I'm not using that is, you know, needed for someone else. It just feels, it does feel good. It's like that's the reconnection, right? And there was a second thought I had, but I forgot it, so it's okay. Cool. So let's look at you know, we just did a lot of like feelings talk, and so I always encourage us after that, like we are touching on some very deep-seated stuff. So I just want to give us a second to check back in with our bodies, whatever works for helping reconnect for your body that feels safe, right? Whether that's breathing or stretching or just like, money's hard, it's so uncomfortable, whatever you need to do. So like shake it out. Yeah, maybe hug a pet or something, but take a second to be with your body and kind of like move that energy for a second. Yeah, cool. So the next thing that we're going to kind of move into is thinking about crafting your ask. And these are the similar slides to the ones, same slides as the one we had at the last one of, you know, just really thinking through some of the points of like how you're going to talk about this. So I do want to give us some time to do that, because again, I know like time is time. And so it might be nice to give us a little time to actually do that. So we have about 6 minutes left. And I want to create space for that. And then what we'll be getting into in part 3 is, you know, really like trying to check in with each other on making those asks and seeing how we're moving, but also talking about long-term commitments to mutual aid and how we do that for ourselves as well as for others, bring them into that work. And also thinking about like social media and lots of other ways that we can raise money or move resources as we need to. So, but yeah, let's start with this ask. I just want to bring us back to thinking about how am I going to talk to people about this? So one, why this org or this person, if you're raising for a person? What is it that about this particular group of people or person that makes you want to, you know, create those opportunities? And then Katie, the next ones. Yeah, you can just do all of them, I think, since we've already all seen these. So personal story, what have you invested, right? Whether that's your time, your energy, your money, right? Someone brought up a really great point. I think, I don't want to say their name because I don't know if they're comfortable with me sharing it, but one person on the meeting last time really talked about the tendency that sometimes we do have as white folks to give our time and our energy and our canned goods and yet not necessarily make it to the giving money part. And that like really hit me hard. So it really had me thinking about, okay, well, if I'm going to talk about investing how am I making sure that like I'm thinking about how I'm investing my money too, you know? But this is also what, if, you know, again, we always want to like think about, you know, your own situation best and like what you can and should give. But what have you invested in it? How has it felt to do it? To like, you know, lean in more of an impactful give, or more of your time than maybe, you know, feels always comfortable, right? What have you invested and why? Why have you done that? And then how does it create the world you and they, which is the we, want? How does it do that? And then really trying, as you're contemplating how to write this, or, you know, think about it, is solidarity versus charity. How are we also, in the way that we're asking from this, to move away from maybe words like fundraising or giving, or, you know, that kind of thing? Are there ways that we can use better language to really talk about solidarity and mutuality, that we're all, you know, that reconciliation that Penny was talking about, how it benefits us all, right? Instead of charity. So just want to give you guys a couple of things just to be thinking about. You know, if we're asking, especially for, you know, big donations, 501c3 status, this is like a really big thing that's going to come up. And what they're really asking is it vetted? Can I trust it, right? Because again, very often as white folks and class privileged folks, this idea that institutions have to be vetted through the government or some higher authority to say that they are trustworthy, right? So just want to like plant that in your head of like really thinking about how can we undermine that narrative, right? And, you know, they're also asking, is it a tax write-off, right? And so am I going to get some percentage back? Is it going to help me financially? Which, I mean, I get it, you know, but at the same time, I think it's important to also kind of think about like, how can we undermine that thought, right? And honestly, it's not as big of a tax break as everybody makes it out to be, right? So like, just like thinking those things through. Yeah, Patsy, me too. My dad cries at Patsy. We sing it loud in our house a lot.
That's true.
Yes, very true. Hoarding. So I think that's another thing you might run up against, is, especially given the context right now, this, you know, all the stuff that we talked about before, lack of safety nets, having a government that we don't have a culture that has safety nets in place, paid by our tax dollars. We are in a time where economic instability is very real. A lot of people who haven't typically been impacted have been impacted, right? So it's very easy to be like, oh, but what if, right? What about that day coming down the pipe, right? And so really just like thinking about how to frame that. And I remember somebody, it was on a chalkboard, and then I've seen it a bunch of other places, but talking about like, we're all in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat, you know, or, you know, you're saving for a rainy day while someone right now is in a torrential downpour. So like really thinking about how to frame those and move to that abundance mindset. And also really, I mean, I think one of the beautiful things of, as we talk about building systems, is that we can actually start to trust that abundance mindset as we ourselves give up money in trust that other people are also going to be there for us when we need it, right? Like that's the hope for mutual aid, is that we don't have to be holding on because we believe in the ability of the community to keep us safe and cared for, right? And then the wanting proof stuff, you know, like wanting to know, who is this person? Are they really in that much dire need? Is there someone else that deserves it more? Is there, you know, can you show, you know, I don't know. And just like also the picture to prove that they are happy that they got the money, like all of that stuff is blech, and we all know why it's blech, I think. So just really thinking through, you know, how can we continue to come back to the relationship that you have with the person, and the systems that create that inequality, and, you know, those kinds of things, and not trying to, you know, perpetuate a lot of these same things that we run into. So I don't know if, before we move on, like, does anybody have thoughts of these kind of 3 sort of bullet points, or other thoughts along those lines that you have been using in your own mind to help you understand it, or as you've been talking to other people, or just anything about this that might be useful? A lot of wisdom in here. All right. There's some good stuff in the chat too. And if you'll go, Katie, the next one, I think that might actually be the end of our slides for now. So this is one that's about, our long-term commitment based on actionable results that removes community out of their dependency on the capitalist settler state. I think we're going to dig into this a little more in part 3. But I think it's a good way to get us grounded. Maybe, Matt, maybe we can take turns reading through it before we leave, just as a way to ground us as we head out. So Matt, you can read as long as you want, and then when you want to stop, you can call on somebody else maybe.
Can you make it a little bigger? Kill the chat or something?
Huh?
Can you make it a little bigger and kill the chat or something?
I think that's as big as I can make it. If it's hard for you to read, you don't have to.
No, sure.
Oops.
Sorry. Yeah, I was trying to make it bigger and it's not really
No.
going.
Okay.
I think if I'm out of share mode, I might be able to make it bigger.
Well, that's fine. You can just share. If Blair closes the chat window, that helps too.
Okay.
Well, since I have it over here, we'll take turns reading it. How about that?
That's even smaller. Be wary of white saviors. In times of crisis, people who have access to money, stable jobs, and housing, most likely white folks, will offer these under the guise of mutual aid. Unless they commit to a long-term mutual aid goal beyond crisis, then it is not mutual aid, it is charity or white savior complex. And we must hold them accountable for not exercising mutual aid beyond an emergency situation. Use their time, money, capital, and privilege to educate others on how and why mutual aid is a community commitment. It's easier than just donating. It is easier than just donating to someone's GoFundMe. It is more than delivering groceries to the elderly once or twice during the COVID-19 pandemic. It is a long-term commitment based on actionable results that removes community out of their dependency on the capitalist settler state. A lot of y'all already practice mutual aid, but it is time to do more right now, considering pandemics trigger folks to hoard as a means to survival. Individualism is capitalism, is colonialism, is white supremacy.
Yeah, so I just want to put that forward for us to be thinking about where we're going, right? Like, of course, this is about getting us the material needs that are needed in the short term. But I think for ourselves individually and kind of the framing we're trying to create to bring other white folks and class privileged folks into an understanding of how different this can be, right? Is thinking of it not as, can you give this one time, but, coming into this longer term commitment, So it's 12:12, it's 2 minutes past when we said, and I just want to give us time to get out there and enjoy the weather and reconnect. And these questions about supporting each other and committing to long-term distribution will be part of part 3 and part 4. And absolutely, Penny, I'm so excited. This year is going to be full of educationals and workshops and study groups around lots of stuff regarding white saviorism, how we move to true solidarity, our own stake, all the things that we've been talking about. So this is going to be, I'm just really feeling excitement, especially, Penny, if it's okay, about, when you and I talked and, you sang this is not something that you've seen before, as someone who's been talking about redistribution for a decade and all these things. It feels really exciting to see this group of people, all of us, making a commitment to trying to really dig in and undo for good, right? And not just let's do a nice thing, but really undo these entire things inside of ourselves and in the systems around us. So I'm just really, learned helplessness. We could have all kinds of talks. Maybe we can do some knowledge sharing, wisdom sharing, getting together kind of stuff. So yeah, for sure. So anybody have an offering to close us out that you want to end with, or do we just want to head on out, one big breath or anything like that? If you don't mind, stop sharing for a second, Katie, so we can see each other. So maybe some breaths together before we leave. And, you know, really taking some time to just be grateful for what we do have, you know, for all of us. It's okay to take a second to appreciate all that you have, to give out and to move in the spirit of gratitude for what we have, and recognize what, you know, that's not true for everyone. And yeah, there's all, yeah. Anyway. All right. Thanks, y'all.